Meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today.
This episode of the Productivityist podcast is brought to you by the Productivityist Playbook. It's time for you to put the personal back into your productivity, and the Productivityist Playbook will help you do just that and more. To learn more about how you can save some dollars on the Productivityist Playbook and a bit more about the product, stick around, and I'll talk about more during the show. But for now, let's get on with things. Welcome to the Productivityist podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vardy, and this week on the show, I have Jennifer Dawn joining me. She is the founder, the creator of Best Planner Ever, and we dive into the building of the best planner ever. We dive into what else she does, because she's coaching as well. She does coaching. She has a lot of other things going on. And the big principle I wanted to focus on was the building of a planner. As you can imagine, there's a real renaissance in paper planners. There are so many of them available now. I wanted to know what went into them. Of course, she's done far more than just build a planner. She's, a serial entrepreneur who's grown 2 multi-million-dollar businesses. She's a frequent speaker and author, and she serves high-achieving entrepreneurs through private business coaching, helping to take their companies further, faster. So we're going to take things further, this conversation further. Let's do that right now. Here's my conversation with Jennifer Dawn about the best planner ever and so much more here on the Productivityist podcast. I'd like to welcome Jennifer Dawn to the Productivityist podcast. Jennifer, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, you're very welcome, Mike. Thank you so much for having me here.
So I am holding what is possibly the least humble planner I've held in my hands. Although, to be fair, I've held books that are like, best year ever. I'm like, really? Let's see. So let's talk about the best planner ever, which I'm holding on to right now. We live in a world right now where paper is making a massive comeback in a lot of ways. And people are finding either new uses for it, or they're finding that it's something that they need to hold on to so they can better connect with themselves. I just, recently, and you can listen, I'll put this in the show notes, but I've talked to Joey Cofone from Bear and Fig about this. I talked to Ryder Carroll about this when we talked about bullet journaling. Why did you build, and why did you and your team build a paper planner? Number one, what was the reasoning behind it? Number two, why another one when there are so many out there right now that we're seeing more and more of them come out on a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And it's kind of a funny story. I swear the name did not come from me being like a giant egomaniac. That's not really where it came from. But
well, your photo is not on the cover, so there's that.
Right, right, exactly. Well, it's funny because there was a period in my career. So I'm a business coach, and before I'd gone out on my own, I was asked to lead a national network of women entrepreneurs, and I ran their masterminding and accountability circles. And the company that did this, that I worked for, and they actually eventually made me the president of that company, they had a planner. And it was so funny because the founder of the company kept saying to me, you need to use the planner. You need to use the planner, because I'm leading, all these women, and they're like, you need to use the planner, but I hated it. It was awful. It didn't work for me. And I think this is another reason why you see so many different planners out there, because it's a very personal thing. Like I never try to say like, my planner is the only planner. It's not. Like you've got to find one that really fits you to really make it work, instead of trying to kind of fit into the planner. Find a planner that fits you. But so after I left there and I went out on my own and I started coaching, I just was sitting, at my desk one day, and I'm looking at my desk and I've just got stuff everywhere. And I had gone through so many different planners and I just couldn't really find one that worked for me. And so I do desktop publishing from earlier in my career, and I just started laying something out, and then I started using it in my own business. I've been a business owner for years. I worked in corporate for years. And I just started laying something out, and I started using it for my own business and my own productivity. And so I'm a mother. I have 3 children, a husband, animals, a horse, like all these different things. And so I was really struggling with trying to find the balance between growing my business and, of course, running my family. And so that's where it kind of started. And as I was using it, I was loving it so much. And I said to my husband one day, I was like, honey, oh my gosh, this is the best planner ever. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to call it that. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. And so that's where the name came from. And so I actually started using it because as a coach, I started using it with my clients, because you can teach them all sorts of things and share all sorts of things, but like they needed a tool to take what I taught them and to implement it in their day-to-day life so that they could be more successful. And they started using it. They started getting really, really great results. They still get really great results. And so that's where it kind of really started. And so from there, it became its own company because it got to be, really popular, and people started really liking it. And there you go. So that's the story. So it really was just me telling my husband, oh, this is just the best planner ever. Because I had searched for so long to find, one thing that would really do everything I needed it to do.
I think what really needs to be stated here too, and especially from someone who's built a planner, I'm talking about you. I'm working on a planner myself. I make no illusions, but for this very same reason that you're talking about, I coach clients, I teach them time crafting. There needs to be a tool for them to use that is actually something that like an everyday touchstone kind of thing, something that they can use as an anchor. I think one of the keys that people miss when they're using a tool or they're adopting a framework is this need to fill in every single component of it. And when you're going through the planner, I mean, there's a lot here, but it's not. I don't find it overwhelming. I just find it that there's elements to it that are. It's kind of like that Bruce Lee quote, right? Take what's useful, discard what isn't, and add a piece of your own to it. Would you say that that's like, based on your story you just told me, looking at this planner, would you say that is kind of what's happened here? And for those who are interested in picking it up, because there's always going to be people that are looking at like, I need, apps don't help me. This freeform, I'm using a Franklin Covey planner, but it doesn't work for me anymore. When they're picking up this planner, how important is it for them to know that it's not about using every single component of it? It's about using it the way that you can use it that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is really how you're going to get results from it, not filling out every line. And in fact, I've had some people come back and say to me, Jennifer, I need more room. And I come back and I say, no, you don't, because that's the point of the planner, is to drill down to the things that are essential that you absolutely need to be working on. And I used so many planners before, and they were just like glorified to-do lists. And I just found myself like filling every line. And so when in the design of this, and this as well, that like, it's not about filling out every line. It's about whatever you're going to put into your day, making sure that it's essential, that it's important, that it's moving your goals forward. That's really what it's about. It's not about every line. And even like in the teaching and stuff I do around it, I say to people like, look, some days in my planner, I've used all the space there. There are other days where I've used, a quarter of the space because I just didn't need it, and try to kind of get away from that thinking that you have to fill, every line in.
How do you feel about dated planners versus undated planners? Because I know that's a big thing.
Oh, it is a big thing. Here's how I feel, Mike. I I hate undated planners.
Oh, all right.
I'm
Let's
sorry.
let's get to this. All right. Okay, so why? Why do you hate undated planners?
Here's why. Because if the date is not printed on the page, I have no real, like, I need to use it today because there's no date. So it works for any day. So for me, I'm just like, when I see that date printed on the page, I'm like, today's the day that I have to use it and I'm going to use it today. If it's not dated, for me, I just feel like it's too like, oh, I could get to it when I want because I could use it any day. Now, I do have an undated version. I do a 90-day undated version because I've just had some people be like, Jennifer, I love your planner, but I don't use it every day and I need something a little more open and flexible. And because I sell a dated planner, sometimes in those transition times, like right now, I'm selling a lot of 90 days because people are transitioning between, they're just now finding me and they haven't started for next year yet. So, but personally, like, and here's the other thing, right? We're talking about productivity. I don't have time to write in the date.
That's valid. That's valid.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's totally valid.
I want it written on the page. And because it's written on that page, I'm much more likely to use it today because today's the only day that it's going to be good in my world. I'm like, well, tomorrow it's a different day. So, and I don't have time to write the date in. I just want it done for me.
Right. Now let's talk about the planner itself because it's only 6 months, right? It's only the first 6 months. And one of the things that, at least the one I'm holding, and the one thing that I'm a big believer in is I don't think that New Year's Day has to be the start of your year. I'm a big
exactly.
So let's dive into that a little bit. First off, why the decision to make it, not a full year planner, at least the one I'm holding. And obviously you've got that 90-day one that you were talking about. And secondly, your thoughts on that idea of New Year's Day being that's it. That's when we start. Because I mean, that's I think a barrier to entry for some people. If they're like, hey, I don't, like for me, I start my year in September, right? Because that's when my kids go to school. So can we dive into that a little bit?
We absolutely can because I actually have 3 different formats. So I have a 90-day that's not dated. I have the 6-month. And so the one that we sent you out was probably January through June. Yep. And then there's also a July through December. But I also have a 12-month. So I have one that has January through December in it as well. So I offer all 3. And the reason why I went with, I've already told you 90-day because some people, the transition times and whatnot.
And seasons too. Right?
And it's kind of a simple thing. So the 12-month, when I included all the pages, it just got to be a little too bulky. And people were like, I don't quite need this many pages. And so in the 12-month planner, which is actually the one that's on my desk, that's what I use as the 12-month because I want my whole year in one book, but I don't want it to be too bulky. So in the 12-month, I consolidated the weekly reflection and the weekend on one page. But in the 6-month, because I've got more room, I have a full expanded weekend, weekly reflection, and then there's an extra my week planning page. So you get a few more pages in the 6-month and it doesn't get too bulky. But with the 12, it's just slightly condensed for the weekend so that we can get 12 months without it. That's really what it came down to was just, it just got to be too bulky when we added those extra pages.
And I mean, the great thing is if you are like me and you start your year not on January 1st, you could just start with the later 6-month one, or you could pick up the 90-day, like the blank ones. I mean, you've built like kind of like an ecosystem that kind of works for anybody in terms of fluidity. One of the things I do like too, and again, this is not. I got to stress, we're not turning this into a commercial for planners. I mean, for the best planner ever, but we are talking about like the idea of what goes into something like this, because I think that's really important. You don't want to be carrying around, if you're using analog tools, you don't want to be carrying around like a planner that is your day timer and then a journal and then this. Mm-hmm. You've actually, the way this is constructed, and this is one of the things I've noticed right out of the gate, is you have built a journaling component within the construct of what exists on each page anyway. So you get a real sense of, okay, how will I feel good today? What did I eat? What were my like you get all that in this one sheet basically per day.
Exactly. That's exactly what went into the design, because here I am looking at my desk and my busy day, and I'm like, I can't go from this to this to this to this. I need one tool that's going to do it all for me. And so like, how will I feel good today is setting that daily intention so that you're starting the day on your terms before the world kind of, has its way with you. And so there's a small space there for you to kind of journal a little bit and write, what's your intention for today? There's the meal and the exercise exercise tracking so that you can do your health stuff. And if you've noticed, like the meal and exercise tracker is the exact size of a 3x3 sticky note. And so originally that space was blank because it was for a sticky note. And so now what I've done is it's an exercise meal tracker if you want it for that. And if you don't, you just stick a sticky note right on top of it. And now it becomes whatever you want it to be. And then the sticky note can actually move from day to day to day because I like can't live without the sticky notes. I need them. I use them. I can't live without them. But that is exactly what I've done. I've kind of combined both. And there's a weekly reflection page in there too. And that's the coaching part of me, which wants you to stop and slow down and not be worrying about just like filling it up with things to do, and stop and really think about where you are, where you're going, your wins for the week. And it's those weekly reflection questions that are a little bit of coaching, journaling, that yes, I've built right in there because I needed that reminder for myself to just slow down a little bit and take some time to reflect.
Let's talk a little bit about the 10-3 strategy, the 10-3 goal strategy, because that's something that is, and you just talked about the reflection piece, and that's in there. There's like a check mark, updated. What can we talk about that 10-3 strategy? Because I think that that's an important piece that people should do, whether they're using some of the best planner ever or not. There's a real good ethos and philosophy behind that. So can we touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So 10-3 is basically 10 minutes, 3 times a day. And I tie it to the A task. And the A task is not like your most important thing in the sense of like, the client meeting or the podcast interview or the vendor, appointment, those things are very, very important, but you're going to do them anyway. Like we're going to show up for our clients. We're going to show up to be interviewed on the Productivityist, right? We're going to do that no matter what. So the A task is really the thing that opens doors. It gets you out of your comfort zone. It pushes the envelope. And it really is something that is going to take you a step closer to your vision of what you want your life, your career, those things to be. And so I always, when I'm working with my clients, it's like, okay, like if it's something you're going to do anyway, yes, it's going to be important. That's a B. But the 10-3 is really about 10 minutes, 3 times a day. Hopefully it's 3 A tasks, things that are going to really open doors and do good things for you.
Let's talk about the B through D tasks then, because I think that's another thing that because a lot of people, what they'll do, and again, these are phrasings that you've come up with, but there's going to be some commonality that you're going to understand, and we're going to talk about how what productivity strategies and frameworks can work within this best planner ever. Spoiler alert, all of them. But the point is, what are the B through D tasks, and how can one define those either within this planner or even, like I said, even outside of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So B is going to be something that's important that needs to be done. C is just things that, kind of like do as you're able. And when I'm using my planner, kind of what I'll end up doing is kind of writing down my C's. And then sometimes when I get a block of time, I'm like, let me knock out some C's. I'll even flip back a couple of pages and then just start knocking out C tasks. But these are just things that I have found, for those of us who love making lists, and I love making lists, I really, really do. And we'll find ourselves just like doing stuff to get it crossed off a list. But what happens is that we end up crossing like easy stuff that doesn't really move us forward off the list. And so the number one thing when I'm like, hey, anybody who's struggling and meeting their goals, I'm like, well, let's look at what you're getting done. And they're like, oh, here's this big long list of all these things I'm getting done. And I'm like, well, that's because 80% of what you're doing is C tasks. And the rest might be B's, and you don't have any A's on this list at all. That's why you're not moving forward with your goals. So C are things that, it might be easy to knock it out, but I'll do C's when I'm brain dead, when I just don't have the bandwidth, right? Or the mental capacity for an A or a B. Or I'll just try and kind of group those things together, or I'll just move them until another day because they really aren't that important. D is going to be delegate. And for me, it's that reminder that I cannot do it all. And I cannot be alone in this, where I need that reminder because I tend to want to just sort of do it myself. And we can't do it ourselves. And so D can actually be like anything from like telling my husband, I need you to make dinner tonight, right? Because I'm working a really long day and I just really need you to help me and make some dinner. Telling my children, I'm sorry, but you have to do the dishes tonight. all the way to reminding myself that, wait a second, I have this great team, make sure that I'm sending them work, make sure that I'm not really taking on the stuff that I don't really need to be doing. So that's what the D is.
We're going to take a break from the show now to talk about a product that I've put together and am very excited about. And it's been out for a while, but now's the time of year for you to pick it up. In fact, any time of year is the time of year to pick it up. It's the Productivityist Playbook. Now, what is in the Productivityist Playbook? Well, there's an ebook there that's going to help provide you with the basics that you'll need to shape your own personal productivity workflow. You get audio files. So if you're an audio learner, you like audiobooks, you like podcasts, they will support you along the way as well. And you get to hear me do that. So that guiding voice of yours truly, Mike Vardy, will be there with you. There's also videos. So you can see me as I dive into some of the tips and tactics that are discussed in the ebook. And there's a formal introduction to time crafting, which is the personal productivity philosophy and methodology that I've put together over years of working with people. It's a methodology that's designed to be flexible, simple, and durable, and it really helps you define your day, filter your focus, and make every moment matter. But there's an element that I have that's in this product that I don't have anywhere else. I bring these things up with coaching clients and in workshops, but they're kind of dripped out over time. You don't get these right away. And you kind of have to have the foundation down first. So if you're going to pick up the playbook, I encourage you to read the ebook first, but then you get these base plays. And I'm doing air quotes right now. You can't see me, but these plays. And what they are they're basically things that you can integrate into your life so you can spend less time guessing and more time going. Think of this as if you're a football fan, there's a playbook that everyone in the offense and the defense gets. And it's basically a series of things that you need to do, plays that you need to run against the opposing team so that you have a better chance of either succeeding against them offensively or defensively. And these base series of plays are, you could call them hacks, but they're not one-time hacks. They're small things that can lead to bigger impact that you can implement right out of the gate. So you get a base series of 8 plays with this as well. Now, how much is this package? Well, this is a lot of stuff that you get, and normally it's $49 to get this. But because you're listening to the podcast right now, you can get this for $10 off. So if you go to productivityist.com/save10, you can get the Productivityist Playbook package for $10 off the regular price. So go to productivityist.com/save10 to make that happen. And I hope you'll join me on this journey. This is the gateway to a more productive life, so you can put the personal back in your productivity and take your productivity to the next level. So go to productivityist.com/save10 to get the Productivityist Playbook for $10 off the regular price. Great savings, great deal for a great listener like you. Now, that's it for the spot here. I'm done talking about this. Let's get back to talking to Jennifer about the best planner ever. I want to talk about simplicity when it comes to productivity and time management, because on its face, when people look at something like this or any kind of tool, they're some people, especially because it's mindset oriented, right? Like they just can't wrap their head around, like, what about like a simple to-do list? Like, can't I just do that? There's a difference between being something that's easy to do and something that's simple to do. And I think there's a distinction there when you're looking at this planner and when you're talking about the things you're talking about, there's a simplicity to them, but they're not necessarily easy to do because we've got our own biases in the way and all that stuff. How do you help people, planner aside or a planner with it, because it is the tool, to bridge that gap between understanding, hey, look, it's not as it may not be easy, but it's simpler than you think. And here's how we can bridge the gap so that you can start to, move forward with the things that you really want to move forward with every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the truth of it is, it probably is a little bit easier to just make a to-do list. Like anybody can do this. You can just write stuff down and start crossing things off, right? That is actually super simple and super easy. The difference is that when you're seeing that you're not really moving forward in your life or in your work goals, in your career, when you're starting to see that you're really not going in the direction you want to go, or you're not really making progress where you want to make progress, that's where it comes down to. It's that part of like making that commitment that, you know what? I'm going to learn how to be more effective with my time. I'm going to be a little more strategic with what I'm saying yes to, what I'm saying no to. For me, that's the difference. The system itself is really, really simple, but when you're first starting to use it, it can absolutely be harder for those of us who are just, when you're just used to writing things on a to-do list to now have to stop and say, wait a second, what's the most important thing? What's the second most important thing? Like, in the beginning, that can absolutely be a little bit harder, but it's worth it if you want to see more forward progress on your goals. That I think is really, it's like, are you willing to make the commitment to, I really want to move myself further, faster? And if you do, then you're going to be willing to invest a little more time in what your to-do list looks like every day.
Back to what we were talking about earlier and how the planner came to be. The idea that there are a lot of different planners out there is one thing, but there's a lot of different productivity philosophies and methodologies out there. They've been around for a long time. It's funny, I was talking to somebody about, I was talking to my client about this, but the book, How to Live on 24 Hours a Day by Arnold Bennett, which Cal Newport mentions in his book, Deep Work. And that book's like over 100 years old, but human behavior really hasn't changed all that much in its relationship to how they treat time and how we deal with all that. Sure, some of the ways we spend our time have changed, but a lot of the principles haven't. When it comes to using your planner, how important was it for you to create something or craft something that allowed people to bring what they had to the table already, maybe a knowledge of another framework that they'd been using, or maybe some methodology that was kind of bestowed upon them in the organization that they were working with, or maybe the tools that they were using, like a digital tool? How important was it for you when you were building this to say, hey, I need to take elements of this into account so that the learning curve is not going to be as steep or as foreboding for them to kind of tackle?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And when I designed it, I think the two words that come to mind when I've designed this were gentle structure. That's really what I've tried to give people, is gentle structure. And for me, like, rigid systems don't work for me. People are going to be like, that Jennifer, but like time blocking, for example. Time blocking is great for my client appointments. I've used it for when I want to go ride my horse. I use it for when I want to go get a massage. Okay, great. I'm time blocking for that time. It's important. I'm setting it aside. But like, using time blocking to like work on a project does not work for me.
Right.
It's never worked for me. And then I start feeling just really like claustrophobic and pressured. I'm like, I've set aside this hour and I have to work on this thing, and it doesn't work for me. Now, there's going to be people out there that time blocking is like their salvation and it works for them. And that's fantastic. And so really my philosophy around this is gentle structure. It's like, look, I'm not trying to give you a rigid system here. I'm trying to give you gentle reminders for the pieces of the day, which I think are important if you really want to move your life and goals forward. And that's really why I designed it, was about moving my life and my goals forward, because I'm a forward girl, right? I don't like to feel like I'm just going through the motions day after day. I really want to grow and expand, and I want those things for myself. I want those things for people who use my planner, people who work with me, all of that. And so it's really not a rigid system. The elements are there so that people can really kind of pick what they like. If you want a time block, great. There's time slots from 6 a.m., up until late at night. Okay. If you don't want a time block, that's fine too. I mean, I actually have people that don't use the timed appointments at all. I have some that are just using the weekly reflection. I have some that just use the meal tracker. Like, they use pieces of it. And that's really how I designed it, is so you can kind of pick and choose which pieces of it work for you. And then I'll also see people, as they start to get kind of into the habit of using it, like, they'll start with certain elements, and as they get better at it, they're like, oh, this is really great. I'm seeing a real difference in my day. Then they start to use more and more of what's there. But it's really not supposed to be a rigid system. I'm not a rigid person. I want to be able to do what I want to do. I don't want people telling me what to do. So the planner is really just kind of there more to support them through the day, but it's not supposed to be like this rigid stick to it or you'll fail kind of thing.
Let's as we get close to wrapping up, let's jump back a bit to talking about the dated part of the planner, because I mean, I'm on the fence with both of those things, but I definitely do see the benefit of having, like, you've committed, this is the date, this is what I need to use. That's a trigger for people to actually use it. But in a world that moves so quickly and with a lot of technology, and, email drives a lot of what people do, which I'm sure you and I could have a whole conversation about that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people, whether it's with the best planner ever or whether it's with any paper based tools? How do you help people, and what do you recommend people do to keep those things front of mind or ready and available when they're trying to build this habit of using a paper planner consistently? Because we live in a world now where it's the technology is no longer paper. Paper is a technology, but it's not the predominant one. We're talking about, plenty of other digital tools, and they tend to draw our attention more than a planner does. You mentioned you have yours on your desk. I'm sure that's definitely one way. But what are some other ways that you've either taught your clients or that you recommend that people can have so that they know, oh, right, this is the place I'm supposed to look first, or this is the place where everything lives?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say to that is you need to find a planner that actually works for you. Because if you're trying to force yourself to use a planner that doesn't really work for you, it's going to be really hard. You might be using it for a little while, but if it just isn't working for you, it's going to be really hard to get into that habit of using it every day. I would say is number one. And it doesn't have to be mine. I mean, just any planner. There's so many, as you've mentioned, there's so many planners out there. So just, look around, find a planner that really aligns with you as a human being. Because when it's in alignment with you, you're actually going to want to go and use it every day instead of it being like this, oh, I'm supposed to, get into my planner and use it every day. When it aligns and it's a useful tool, you're going to want to open it up. The next thing I would say is, with the planner and with my clients and people that I've worked with, I try to get them to make that planner like the central thing. Put everything in it. Don't just put this in it or one other element in it. Like, put everything in it. And this is why the personal can be in there, the work can be in there, because then it starts to really become so much more useful when it becomes like your go-to. When the kids' appointments are in here, and my doctor's appointment is in here, and my vendor meeting is in here, like it's all in one place. It starts to now become so much easier because it's all in one place. So it's easier to make it your go-to. The other thing I would suggest is that I have sticky notes everywhere. I'm like a sticky note fiend. I have sticky notes in my car. They're on my nightstand. They're in my kitchen. They're in my bathroom. They're on my desk. Like, they're everywhere. And so with the sticky notes, anytime I have anything that sort of comes to mind or I need to remember to do, I'm putting it on a sticky note. But the key is that I'm taking it and I'm sticking it in the planner. So I work with clients who come to me and they've got notes like everywhere. They've got this journal over here and this planner over there, and they've just got everything all spread out. Well, none of it's useful because it's not all consolidated into one place. And then you're trying to remember where you put the note. So you can have the sticky notes, but whatever planner you're using, just make sure that they always end up in the planner. And now they're in one place. You can sort through, you can organize, and that's where it starts to become that practical, useful tool that you just sort of almost naturally start to gravitate towards just using it every day because it's all in there.
Yeah, I think it's important for people who use sticky notes to realize that they're satellites. They're not really the master.
Right.
They have to have a place that the signal is being sent to or from. So if you put it in a paper planner, then and the great thing about a dated planner too is that the date can connect with whatever you wrote down. So that could trigger, in case you captured the item poorly or whatever, it can maybe, failing the proper capture practice, then you end up going, oh, right, that's what that thing is. So I think that that's a really valuable insight. Jennifer, this has been a really great conversation. I know that, again, the idea of putting, we're seeing that renaissance of, like I said, paper tools. And as we close out here, why do you think that paper planners and paper has made such a bit of a comeback, or we've seen a return to it over the past several years, when technology, really the digital tools have just gotten better and better? Why paper now?
For me personally, there's a reason why you hear things popping up now, like I'm going to take a technology fast, right? I'm going to disconnect. We're so connected. Technology is everywhere. You can't go to a restaurant without seeing people constantly on their phones. Heck, most people can't get in their car and drive somewhere without still being on their phones. We're so connected. I think the beautiful thing about paper is it's like the opposite of the technology. It's a way to disconnect. It's quiet. It's not like, I know that there's not going to be an ad that pops up inside of my planner, right? I'm not going to be distracted by emails dinging and text messages going off. Like, it literally, for me, is a way for me to quiet my mind and completely disconnect from all the technology, all of the stuff, so that I can really focus on me, myself, my life, my goals. The paper lets me do that. There's no Google ads popping up in my planner, and it's just like this safe space where I can go and I can just be quiet, and it's all about me. That's for me one of the reasons why I just love the paper planners, and I think no technology can replace the act of writing something down, like seeing the writing, crossing it off when you got it done. Like, I haven't found any technology that replicates that feeling. It just feels so good. In my planner, at the front pages, there's blank vision pages there. Mm-hmm. So you can actually do a vision board right in your planner. And for me, I can flip to that. I can get inspired. It's a reminder of why I'm working so hard. And then I can go plan my day. And I just feel like that's hard to do on technology. I can hold it in my hands. I can feel it. I can live it. I can breathe it in, and then go plan my day. And technology just can't do that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Jennifer, thanks so much for taking the time today to speak with me. Where can people find out more about you, pick up the best planner ever, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, well, it's really easy, right? The website is bestplannerever.com, and there's contact form on there. People can find me there. They can pick up a planner. We do a whole bunch of other supporting products. There's books and training and all sorts of things around it as well. But bestplannerever.com is the place to go.
Jennifer, thanks for joining me today on the Productivityist podcast.
You are so welcome, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
So that's it. Big thanks to Jennifer for joining me this week on the show. You can learn about the best planner ever at the URL, but better still, go to productivityist.transistor.fm/217, and you can get all the show notes, all the links, everything you need as a companion piece to this episode. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast yet and you don't want to miss a single episode, do that. Hit that subscribe button, and that way you can make sure that each and every week you get a fresh episode of the Productivityist podcast in your podcast application of choice. And while you're in that podcast application of choice, whether it's Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening, why not give the show a rating and review? It helps me make the show better. It helps people find the show. We learn from those and we celebrate those reviews. So please give a rating and review if you find some time to do that. Maybe put that in your task app. Put that in your best planner ever. Say, hey, I'm going to give a rating and a review to the Productivityist podcast. I would really appreciate it. And I appreciate my producer, John Polstra, for putting the show together. And I appreciate you for listening. That's it for this time. Thanks so much. Until next time, I am Mike Vardy, the host of the Productivityist podcast, reminding you to stop guessing and start going. We'll see you next time.